Welcome to this live stream from Windows on the World. Got a special guest from Preston tonight. We've been in touch for quite a few years, and Darren Pearce has written quite a few poems and sent them to me. They're very good. But it's not all going to be about poetry, because we are in the fourth world wilderness, the wilderness of the mind project, the one we've been talking about for years. We're going to have a lighter look at that tonight. And do keep your eye out over the next week or so, because I'm going to be uploading some fantastic stuff. I'm just getting something back at me. Hang on a minute. I'm going to have to I can hear myself coming back in the headphones, so something must be switched on, and I don't know what it is. So what we're going to do before we start properly is get rid of all these extra. Oh, there it is. I think this is the window. Yes. Too many windows open. Yeah, I didn't advertise this, so hopefully people are joining as we go along. But I just wanted to tell you about a couple of articles on the homepage. We did a live stream on Monday. I'm trying to get this information out there because these articles contain everything you need to know. And we've done shows about the solution. We've done shows which tell you or inform you exactly what you need to do at this present moment in time through, of course, many years of research. And when I go back in the archive, it surprises me the amount of stuff there. And I'm going to be putting out some of these streams over the next week. So hopefully there's people out there who can really make a difference. So Daz, just explain yourself as to why you didn't have a camera tonight.
Yeah, God, you were. Yeah, sorry. That was a bit of a shocker for you. I'm a bit of a Luddite. I'm a bit of a 20th century boy, actually. So yeah, but I'll tell you.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. It was just very strange because I just saw you there and I thought, I'll put the camera on, and there's no camera, and we're in this age where everyone wants to see people talking, don't they? So it was a profound shock to me. But I think what we should do before we get this properly underway is, why don't you give the viewer a little bit of your background, because I don't get anybody from the Conspiracy Circus on these shows. I like to get people who are outside it, who have some knowledge. And we actually got in touch about 5 years ago because you were being harassed by a change agent. But before that, obviously, you were doing other stuff. So tell us about your life story in about a minute and a half.
Oh God. Well, okay. So I've been writing songs, poetry, stuff that rhymes since I was 17. I've obviously tried to build some sort of career. A failed one, albeit in the corporate world as well, which the corporate world's full of good stories.
Yes.
But in terms of the other, I started taking an interest in I think I came across you around 2018, as we were saying there. It was just a chance encounter at a pub actually after work one night, and I realized that I don't know what, something went on within me that went, this person isn't on the level. This person is somebody who's been planted into the community. They've turned up out of nowhere, and they just seem to tick so many perfect boxes. I seemed to find your show around the same time. It was a nice little confluence, and you introduced me to the term change agent. I think that was the thing, and I described what was going on with this person, and I think there'd been one other in the past, and I went, these were change agents.
Yes, and the thing is about that, well, the main thing about that is that there was hundreds of thousands of these people brought into what people thought were their communities from about 2010 onwards. It rapidly escalated under the big society, and we had groups like Citizens UK and the Unlimited, who were training these people. They're training future leaders. It's not just Crown agents and people like that, because if you look at Crown agents, they actually train leaders for countries. But this whole mentoring program of sustainable development means they need these drones, which have just a certain ability to put out propaganda and shut down anything which goes against the allowed, controlled corridor of opinion. And they carry it around with them all the time because they become very belligerent about it. And it means that these people aren't real. Of course, we know about neuro-linguistic programming, and you can see this a mile off. What these people don't seem to realize is there are people out there who can see right through them. But because they've got jobs under sustainable development in your local council leaders will be full of these, the leaders there and the people in the like cabinet member for the environment. They will be all change agents, and they are parachuted into the job. They are belligerent. They are going along with this communitarian stroke Marxist agenda, and they use the Saul Alinsky rules for radicals. Did you come across anything like that? The Saul Alinsky rules, for instance, of this kind of almost terrorism, this audacity beyond any kind of authority that they should hold?
I just remember a couple of very strange encounters I had with these people. I found them very weird, very intimidating. And even looking back, I was just thinking about, because I knew in the week we were going to have this conversation. I was just thinking back to, like, people who maybe you've run into in the past, in official capacities, maybe with the council or that kind of thing. And you think about just the methods they use when they communicated with you. And sort of like the logical fallacies and the psychology techniques that they would use. And you go, yeah, that wasn't a healthy dialogue, was it? That was not a healthy interaction. That was somebody who was looking to mess with your mind. Yeah. I'm not researching these things on the level that you are. And I mean, we talked about a few of the things that have happened, but when I've met these people, it has just felt weird. It's just when your body talks to you and around somebody, you think this.
Well, I think what it is they're not natural, are they? They're not on the level,
no.
And that's the first thing you notice. And they have a way of performing. They use a lot of gesticulation, and they use a lot of inflection with the way that they put things across, which makes them even more phony than they are in the first place. So basically, what this is about, it's removing anything that is personable from these change agents. And when I saw it through the Saul Alinsky rules, Saul Alinsky was this radical campaigner in the 60s who was meant to be empowering the poor. But of course, it wasn't about that. It was the Marxist revolution, or basically Trotsky's continual revolution. Whenever you see the word revolution, that's them. It's their revolution. So when you see revolution, it's this system being imposed. It's got nothing to do with the people. And the idea is that they make it look as though it comes from what they call the grassroots. Nothing could be further than the truth. And when I started seeing it, it was on levels, say, from 0 to 10. 1 and 2 and 3, those are the people in your local council. 4, 5, and 6, these are the higher ups. These are people who've been put into your community to bring in projects or shut down existing projects. Then above that, say if we go 7 to 10 or 6 to 10, we're getting into a very nasty area where these people use domestic terrorism and are supported by the police and local government. And that is a fact, because I've kind of experienced the whole thing. And this is why I'm kind of gobsmacked that more people have not talked about this. I know there's been a big deal made of this finishing school for change agents called Common Purpose, but it's a complete and utter decoy. And what's been said about them by certain people is not even true. So there's a subversion going along, even within this idea of exposing it, because they cover everything. And a loud voice of fake dissent is something we've also talked about. And I know you listened to our show, The Conspiracy Grifters, which was actually, I was encouraged to do that by the listeners. I didn't want to waste my time on these people. And I've always thought that. But it got to a crisis point, because when the COVID thing started, all these grifters come out of the woodwork, and all of a sudden they're freedom fighters. Whether they know it or not, they're enabling the constant and never-ending revolution, because they are not addressing anything of importance which can achieve anything to actually counter what's going on. Astroturfing, very good, folk. Yeah, that term came out years ago, didn't it? Astroturfing was really what all this fake green stuff was all about. And it's been in our archive, Darren, for 15 years, this stuff. I'm a bit horrified when I go back into it, because I just think, has any of this sunk in? Has anyone done any research into this? Because they're now going round in circles, and it's gone to the point, so, some conference that I've been sent this week. Listen to this. The talks are things like the power of the subconscious mind. Well, we've never heard that being talked about before, have we? You know, vibrational freedom technique, plant and mushroom wisdom. What is the common solution? Well, we've been talking about that for a long time. Metaphysics for every day, and it closes with a world peace meditation. In other words, the wilderness of the mind project has absorbed completely these people who thought that they were opposing what they are in fact enabling. It's called the fourth world, the borderless wilderness of the mind, where nothing means anything, anything goes, and the cult of self is pushed because the narcissists and the people who are obsessed with trivia are the most easy to control because they will oppose nothing. And that is something that I was very concerned about after all the years we've spent putting this stuff out, that this nonsense is the end result. Because these people who put this thing on, the woman who organized this nonsense thing, is someone I had on the show talking about communitarianism. She talked about it for 2 weeks and then it was forgotten. Because guess what? The trivia filled the empty shell. And that was it.
Well,
and basically, yeah. We've talked about this before, haven't we?
Well, we have, yeah. I rewatched that conspiracy grifters thing just yesterday as it happened. There was the stuff with Greg Hallett was extremely funny.
That was the conspiracy hoaxers, which is a slightly different strand of the series.
Yeah, but I think you mentioned it on the grift because Will Rowland was great on that as well. And so you had him saying he was the King of England. But you've talked about stuff like Kabbalah as well on if I've got the pronunciation right, and I don't research this stuff with as much depth as you do, or anywhere near. But I have been aware of this kind of fake pound spirituality. It's been kicking about for a while, hasn't it?
And they've attached this Kabbalistic element to it, so it all becomes this kind of melting pot of nonsense. Because Kabbalah was nonsense in the first place when you actually look at it in depth, where it came from, what it was, who did it. But it had a massive effect around the world through these Messianic lunatics like Sabbatai Zevi and later Jacob Frank. These were the Sabbatai and Frankists who want to create as much chaos on the world so the Messiah will come back. And these people have been involved in revolutions, the Young Turks, for instance, in Turkey. This was all the Don May, who were these converted to Islam people who were Kabbalists, who were followers of Sabbatai Zevi and Jacob Frank. And as I said, I think in that last, I think I brought it up, you wouldn't call them Jews because they're not. They're these Messianic lunatics who followed these Kabbalists. And then we got later the Hasidim movement of the 1800s, and they very much support the Kabbalists and this idea of messianic world realization that this Messiah is going to come back. Yeah, Madonna's a great example of pound shop spirituality because she has no knowledge about anything. There is nothing there but an empty, shallow narcissist who's not even good karaoke, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion, because I like people who can sing and perform. And in my opinion, she can do neither and never could. When she was younger, she could get away with it, but not anymore, I mean, there's, I like people who get up on stage and can really bloody kick some ass, and she can't, But however, we're drifting off the point.
No, I was just going to say, like, if you go to adopt an African kid now, you can't. They're out of stock because Madonna's adopted them all.
That's right. I mean, the virtue signaling is on a level which you couldn't possibly imagine.
Yeah,
but with people like that, it's the kind of fake rebelliousness. I mean, she's the most corporate and dull person I think I've ever come across in the music industry, and there is nothing going on. And those are the people who are promoted. But this is another thing I think it'd be good time to bring up. What's the poetry game like these days? Because I remember the days of performance poetry years ago. I've never been that much into poetry, to be honest, but I like good stuff, And we used to go to this thing called the Brixton Poets. And they were a right bunch of, a lot of them were Marxists actually, but some
Yeah.
of them were really, really funny and genuinely off the wall, eccentric. And I have a feeling that those sort of personalities may now be in decline. What's your experience of it?
Well, I'm going to say, I actually mix on. There'll be a few listeners actually from the music scene where I am.
Hmm.
You know, I tend to congregate with the music scene, not the poetry scene. Partly because of the political thing. You're right. I mean, it's a very, very, Marxist, left-leaning scene, and I kind of have limited time for that kind of thinking anyway. And then you've got the whole cravat neck scarf thing and the pretentiousness that goes with the poetry as well. And I just
Me,
think,
my scarf, and I. Nearly didn't get
very
here
good.
tonight. Yes,
Yeah,
me, my
yeah,
scarf, and I. Yeah,
yeah.
that sort of fake aristocracy thing. There was a fella called Sir Gideon Vane, and he's actually very funny, but he was part of that. But even they seem to have been in decline now, because he used to know this person called Tony Allen, and I went on Tony Allen's stand-up course,
Yeah.
and he's called Tony as well, but I can't remember his name. But he used to do this character, and sometimes it wasn't funny at all, and sometimes it was absolutely hilarious. It was a bit hit and miss. But is there any of that sort of character theatre going on anymore? Because obviously I don't go to these places now, not very often anyway.
I don't know. Maybe like I say, I tend to stick to the music scene. And I mean, I can't think of anybody who has created an alter ego that they play on stage off the top of my head.
Right.
But I've had a go at comedy as well. I mean, that's something you could visit. But I just I think do I actually know any? Do I know? I don't think I actually know any stand-ups or anything like that.
Right. Because the stuff I've seen, the stuff that's regurgitated through television, I just turn it off, because
Oh God,
it's
yeah.
just it's kind of the brainwashing and the programming and the self-conscious virtue signaling and political correctness. I mean, it was people like Ben Elton who started that, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, it
They
was.
basically they took the comedy out of comedy and turned it into like political statements.
Yeah, look, they took. But it's when it becomes party political as well, isn't it? It's when it becomes tribal. I think it crosses a line, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yes, well, absolutely. And then, of course, it becomes the communitarian stroke communist thing, where
Yeah.
if you're against it in the audience, then you're pounced upon. Or if you get up there and say something and you've got one of these programmed audiences there, then it's a problem. But there are people who get around that. I thought, what was his name? Will Franken. Is it Will Franken? The poet. He did the Greta Thunberg thing. I follow
Right.
some of his stuff. That was very good. He kind of got round it very cleverly, I thought. I thought he was great doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but you're right about that. That very political comedy scene that started in the 80s. And I just think, because people used to have a go at people like Bernard Manning, right? But they couldn't see that actually. Look, it's going to sound a bit contentious, what I'm saying, but actually, it's just the same thing painted a different color, isn't it? That yeah.
Well, the thing is with Manning, what fascinated me more about him was from the variety background, because he was originally a singer, wasn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
And he'd come up here and he'd tell them jokes, and then he'd sing you this song like the Wheel Tappers and Shunters, And I just love the off the wallness of it in a way, because it was just I do like gags, I do like one-liners, and his one-liners are great, and. There's all this kind of backlash against it, but they kind of miss the point, because comedy has a way of actually really cutting through with truths. I mean, if you're offended by something like that, then it means you're not actually seeing it for what it is, because something's either funny or it isn't.
Yeah,
That's
for
my view
sure.
anyway. You know what I mean? Do you think there's rules to whether things are funny or not?
Rule. I think very few things should be off limits, personally, Mark. Yeah, I'm just you could make a very short list of things you probably shouldn't make jokes about, but it'd be short. Yeah.
Yes.
speaking of comedy, we talk about grifters as well. Well, grifting comes in many forms, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, TV comedy. Mr. Brand. What were your thoughts on Mr. Brand?
I think I've already given my verdict on that. I mean, it's very much indicative of the wilderness of the mind. He's got nothing to say, knows nothing about anything, and he makes these statements, throws in a few big words, and people think he's eloquent in some way when he's just a rambling, brain dead moron, in my opinion. Has nothing to say, knows nothing about anything. He's got no knowledge, and he's promoting every globalist agenda going. All of the New Age, the whole Wilderness of the Mind project is basically his spiel. That's what it is.
Yeah, and I find it baffling, how he suddenly kind of hit the button at some point. He wrote Revolution. He went through a revolution. That was
that was interesting because
books, wasn't it? Yeah.
He put a book out.
Yeah.
And I think that he was being very promoted at that point. It was at the height of his fame in a way. He's on telly a lot. And I think even the people who were promoting this stuff knew that it wasn't good enough. Because I remember when he was doing that book, people were heckling him and calling him out. And yeah, he's a good example of the cult of mediocrity. Because, well, I've never laughed at anything he said. Have you?
No.
Ever?
No.
I mean, it's not comedy, is it?
No. I mean, it's like listening to a shrill teenager. Just.
I can't stand that high voice either.
Yeah.
He sounds like this neurotic girl or something. That really winds me up. And then he does all this hand gesticulation. And then what he does is he leans back and he's got this very defiant, demonic look in his eyes. And one of those women, she mentioned that he's got this glazed look and he's not there. I thought that was incredibly interesting because I've always thought he was possessed. And obviously if you're an addict, then the chances are you are going to be susceptible to demonic possession. There's no doubt about that. That's how they get in the first place. One of the routes.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, people kind of put the on it, don't they? They say about addiction takes people. Oh, well, actually, does addiction actually attract a certain type of personality in the first place? Yeah?
Well, I think that there's a big difference between addictive personalities and someone like him, because I know addictive personalities and they're really talented, and he's not talented at all. So just because he's an addict doesn't make him interesting either.
No,
No. But I can't really get it. You see, the other one I can't get is that Jordan Peterson, because that phony, whinging, whining nonsense is like low-level, first-grade psychology for retards. I mean, all right, he's been in institutions all his life, but they're worshipping him. And all he is a tool of the system. He's got nothing to say. And then he puts in a bit of this self-empowerment thing. I just think it's garbage. But I can't see, obviously, what other people are seeing. I just can't see it. And I think we talked about, I don't really want to bring him up, but I did. But it kind of astonishes me that people fall for this garbage.
Well, I gave him a chance at first and I quite liked him. I think I'd even said that to you. But I do wonder, it's one of those where, we've all got a kind of finite life in terms of like how much we've got to say. And it does appear to me that Jordan Peterson, why is he still around? Because it's like he's outlived. Surely he's outlived the shelf life of anything.
But he's not outlived his usefulness, because he's leading a lot of what could possibly be anti-globalists into being globalists. You see, the globalists need the anti-globalists to implement their policies. And he kind of feigns to be some kind of alt-right type thing. It's all BS. I mean, he's 100% globalist, 100% arse-licking globalist. I shouldn't have said that because we got bloody community strike the other
time. I'm being good.
You're being great. It's me, I've gone out of control, haven't I?
No. But I thought he was masquerading as some sort of conservative originally.
Yes,
and
that's right.
But I think he was on that train of be tough with yourself, improve yourself,
the self-empowerment. thing. Yeah.
Yeah, look, but he was doing it.
Well, but I mean, it's banal, isn't it? Clean your room. I mean, oh no, just no. You know.
Yeah.
No.
I mean,
No.
I'd still say he's got more going on than Russell Brand has, but that's not difficult. But yeah,
It's a bit depressing talking about these people, actually, Darren. I don't know why we're doing it. We're kind of falling into the trap now, aren't we? I think it was the Conspiracy Grifters show that brought that up. So apologies if we dallied on those two idiots for too long. But I think the original point was the brainwashing and the way comedy has been kind of neutered. I had Steve Hughes on a while ago, and he was calling a lot of that stuff out. But what I find is that there seems to be limited scope now within that field. But maybe it's time that we tried something which broke through another system of comedy, you know. I always liked Vic Reeves, you know. I thought, because that was it was like anti-comedy in a way, wasn't it? It was like sort of making fun of comedy. But even though I didn't laugh out loud all the time, I always found it very entertaining and genuinely off the wall.
Oh yeah, it was bonkers. It was, yeah. Vic, Reeves and Mortimer. Yeah, I mean, that was.
I thought Bob Mortimer was really funny. You know, really funny bloke.
It was very, it was like, and you couldn't get a tribute act for them. There was only ever going to be one of them. They were genuinely like out there, and they just do completely zany stuff, and it wasn't necessarily something to make you laugh spontaneously. You're right, Mark, but you go, that was different. I'll remember that for the rest of my life. Yeah,
it was like music hall, surrealistic music hall, and I thought I really liked the idea of what they were doing when they came on and they'd sing us like a rock song. Like Meals on Wheels about the pensioners and all that. They're doing like a sort of heavy metal song, and then the fella comes on. Have you got any booze for it, baby? and just very simple catchphrases. But all of that came from music hall. Yeah. Really, it came from catchphrases and music hall. Like all people, even though I never found Max Miller funny, it came from those sort of people. And right. I already had a fascination with variety and music hall. I had a real fascination with that.
Well, is that sort of like 1940s and 50s sort of era?
No, but earlier than that. I mean, we're going back to the music hall of the 1800s.
Right, okay.
People like Harry Champion, right? You know, and singing songs about his greyhound and two lovely black eyes and all this stuff. And some of them were very off the wall. They did monologues, which weren't particularly funny. And then I think that the Reeves and Mortimer thing kind of followed on from that. It was still in that vein of slightly madcap. And then when they brought in Uncle Peter, Charlie Chuck, he kind of complimented it even more, because I actually booked him for a gig, Charlie Chuck. And it was at the 100 Club. And there was a band on as well. And he came up on the train and he got up on stage, and about 80 Japanese tourists walked in. And he died on his arse. I was the only person laughing, you know. But I was laughing because they weren't laughing, and I was laughing at him. So I was laughing hysterically at the bar, you know. And okay. I think he was a bit kind of bemused by it all and slightly offended, I think. But it was memorable in that way only, I suppose. But yeah, I think that I like surreal kind of things, you know, personally. And that seems to be a bit out of the window now. Donkey, that's right, yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. You like surreal? I don't know. I like stuff that's observational, you know, but doesn't get into
good observation.
So but doesn't get into doesn't get into, you know, like it doesn't turn into sort of like the tribal comedy that we talked about earlier, you know, just and stuff that makes makes an interesting point about life or people or whatever. But I mean, really good comedy is just I don't know, it's thin on the ground. There's not much, you won't see it on television. You're right.
No,
that's the main.
I mean, yeah, I think that it's again the wilderness of the mind thing, isn't it? Because I don't think you're going to produce good comedians in this kind of globalist, narrow accepted corridor of opinion, political correctness, or believing in climate change and all the rest of it. There's never going to be any comedy out of that, is there? You know, I mean, the only comedy out of that would be making fun of their comedy, really.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny when the lockdown was on, and that was a nightmare. I mean, most sane people hated the lockdown. And I remember watching an episode of the MASH report, because there was, that was, what else did you have to do, right? And I thought, I'll watch the MASH report and see if it is remote. And I was like, I came away from that. I went, this is the kind of comedy that would have been like on the state channel in the Soviet Union. Yeah. You know, it's sort of like, it is sort of like state approved comedy. I was like,
absolutely, it's all state approved comedy, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's all state approved comedy. Yeah.
I was like, this is twisted. This is weird, you know.
And having said that, Darren, it's 29 minutes in and you haven't done 30 minutes, 48, and you haven't done a poem yet. So are you going to do a poem?
I will. Well, yeah, we're going to do 2 across the show. Yeah. So let's do it. Let's do
chuck
one.
Chuck one in.
So we've got a new collection out today, as it happens, called Supernova. So I was always going to bring it out on Friday the 13th. So thanks to any of the fans who are listening. And you can buy it on lulu.com. If I can do a shameless promotion there.
You think you should?
Yeah, there you go. Lulu.com. It's only £3 as well. So I'll do one from that. It's called Mercury on the Water. Mercury on the Water concerns a bit of a run-in I have with. We could talk about narcissism in a minute. It's a nice little segue.
Absolutely.
Yeah, particularly narcissistic creature I had dealings with about 12 months ago. Which, so you know, we live and learn. So this is called Mercury in the Water. So, reasons to be cheerful, I have precisely none. The final scene is tearful, unless I act smart and get gone. Her psychopath leaves me battered, the damage will be medical. My firm belief is without teeth, food's pretty inedible. Don't you know that she's the daughter of a 2-headed monster from outer space? Hey, that glass of wine you bought her might just get thrown back in your face. So be glad you never caught her. A catch so much worse than the chase. When there's mercury in the water, hey, we've got to get out of this place. So reasons to be cheerful, I have precisely none. I'm feeling pretty fearful. Decision makes itself, get gone. She inflicts pain upon my brain, and yes, the pain is medical. If I shamelessly enter her radius, I don't imagine what's inevitable. Don't you know that she's the daughter of a 2-headed monster from outer space? Hey, her fuse is getting shorter, and I don't think Daz can hack the pace. So don't care, call it manslaughter. This is definitely a murder case when there's mercury in the water.
You know what? I think some people might be grossly offended by that, you know. Are you still there?
Hey.
I think it's disappeared. I thought it disappeared. You're not offended, are you? I thought... No, I thought... so, you know, do you ever get any comments at your shows that people might be... concerned that you're picking on minorities like narcissists, you know?
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah. I had another verse to go.
Oh, shit, I'm really sorry, man, because it went quiet. And all right. Accept my humble apologies and let's crack on with the next bit.
It's okay. I thought somebody put a comment in the chat or something.
No, because it went quiet. I thought you'd lost your connection or something. That's why I was filling in.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, crack on. Yeah.
No, yeah, there you go. Right, so yeah, sick of looking over my shoulder. This anxiety is medical. Must soothe my nerves, regain my verve. Just remember, Daz, you're incredible. Don't you know that she's the daughter of a 2-headed monster from outer space? And to think that I once thought her to be a member of the human race. I'll do this as John Cooper Clarke if you want. So please pour me a pint of porter, because I am getting shit-faced when there's mercury in the water. Hey, we've got to get out of this place. Don't you know that she's the daughter of a 2-headed monster from outer space? And her mother must have taught her to repel both pepper spray and mace. So this non-roving reporter will stay home, listen to Black Lace when there's mercury in the water. Hey, we've got to get out of this place. And there we go.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Well, actually, you know what?
Yeah.
How many people do you reckon would remember Black Lace now?
Black Lace.
That was Agadoo, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah, they did it. Yeah, they did it. I could do. Yeah.
But you remember their earlier, previous 70s hit, Billy Don't Be a
No.
Hero?
Right. Okay.
That was them, wasn't it? That was
Yeah.
blackface, wasn't it?
Mm. I just being a child of the 80s, a teenager of the 90s. I remember them for Agadoo, So
yeah, I mean, I think that was the it was the less kind of credible part of their career, but in a way more successful, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, you mentioned John Cooper Clarke there. I used to bump into him quite a lot. He's a very friendly bloke, and he was actually a massive Carl Denver fan. So people had come up, because I loved Carl Denver. Carl Denver was from Manchester, and he actually made the first world music record, which was actually introduced by Bernard Manning on the Wheel Tappers and Shunters Social Club, because Carl Denver used to play all the clubs, and he later went into country, and he had a very high voice, very big range. He was from Glasgow, and he did a song called "Whim Away." Paper lace, that was it. Sorry, I'm getting black paper lace and black lace mixed up. I'm getting my ears. Darren, your poem has caused a breakdown in communication in the right and left parts of my brain or something.
Oh, so it's all my fault. Okay,
that's right. Billy, don't be a hero. Don't be a fool with your life. Yeah. But I loved all that stuff, like Whim Away. I remember seeing it on the Wheel Tappers and Shunters. Have a look at it. Put Carl Denver, Whim Away. It's completely off the wall. It's so eccentric, and they're all sat there with the pints clapping, going like this. And I think Bernard introduces him.
Right.
Lovely singer now, ladies and gentlemen. Carl Denver, Whim Away.
That's it. Because he was doing it. That was something he did. There's an interesting one. Have you seen that Noel Gallagher video from a few years ago where he's got the animated Bernard Manning introducing him?
No.
But Bernard Manning passed away. Was it like in the 2000s, wasn't it? And there's a
long
Noel
time ago.
Gallagher video. I think it's called Black Star Dancing. The song, and he has an animated Bernard Manning at the start of the video, introducing him. So just you made me think of that. So
yeah, lovely lad from Manchester.
Yeah.
Can't keep his hands out of his pockets. Drinks too much.
Yeah. But he's less mouth than his brother. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I used to like Oasis though, but I never liked them, if you know what I mean. I just found them really boring. But there was something about the songs I really liked. It was very hypnotic, his guitar and Liam's voice. I did like it, but they were very disappointing to watch live,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I think I like they did a couple of great records,
definitely,
in the mid-90s. But I think they fell into the thing of they couldn't keep doing the same thing forever, but they had nothing else either. They only had kind of an Oasis record is an Oasis record, isn't it? It's and they didn't have any way that they could branch out, I don't think.
Yeah, it's interesting all that. I've just been thinking about it, quite a lot recently, because I sort of sometimes put music on, and it's kind of interesting the sudden and rapid change I think that's happened in the last 10 years, isn't it? There's been a rapid change. There's no organic kind of stuff allowed now.
No, I think it's been
manufactured, isn't it? Yeah.
I think it's been going on for slightly longer than that, Mark. I noticed it in the 2000s as well. It was starting then, and when you got when you got kind of people who were relics of like the 80s and 90s and they were still around and they got on TV or whatever, it was like a bit of a treat, really, because you noticed that you're right, that everything seems to be on some sort of postmodern loop as well. Yeah.
This is part of the social engineering, which I found quite interesting. One of the things that got me into my research was looking at this stuff and the way it kind of happens across the board, because this Dr. Richard Day said in 1969, he worked for what became the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, which was Planned Parenthood. And he gave an off-the-cuff lecture in, it was Mount Sinai Hospital, actually. It was for students. He was a pediatrician. And he said, amongst many other things, that music was going to get worse. And it would become almost unlistenable. And what would happen was that the older people would have their own stations, and they would actually start, the stations would die off with the people. And then they'd just be left with this kind of non-involving, non-engaging, bland music, which had no meaning to anybody anymore. And that seems to have happened in a lot of ways, doesn't it? I think.
Yeah, it's become so anodyne. It's like the music you hear in lifts and whatever is like it's become the norm. It's become the norm, hasn't it?
Yes.
And there's nothing that makes you go, oh, that was a. You don't even get. I can't think of anybody who you go, oh, that was a great bit of guitar work, or There just doesn't seem to be any originality anymore. It's almost like an originality is verboten, isn't it?
Yes, it's outside the allowed corridor. It's kind of looked at blankly. I mean, I got into show business years ago, and I ended up just doing that for a long time, just because I like gigging live. Really, I got a buzz out of it, and traveling as well. And the people I met were. It was a leftover really from the tribute thing and of the variety thing had kind of died off. I remember I shared a dressing room in Harlow once with this fella called Jimmy Tamley, who'd won New Faces or something, and he was still doing his act. And he had there was about 8 ventriloquist dolls, and he kept coming back for them. And he'd come back and he'd have another one. Then you could hear his voice changing outside, And he put them back. And I was sat in this dressing room with these ventriloquist dolls in this dark and depressing place in Harlow. And I was looking at them when he brought them off stage, and they were really bloody creepy, It was just like the life was still in them. I mean, I used to enjoy it. like they just suddenly wake up and start talking to you. And those sort of acts, I mean, they're like something from 200 years ago now, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Because I think it's like the social club thing. That was big, wasn't it, in the 80s now? Because I didn't get into it till late. I didn't start doing it really till the 90s. And all through the 2000s, they were closing down. And you used to have these social clubs. And there was always a club secretary. And they'd always come up to you at the beginning. And then in the interval, they'd go, now, you see that bloke over there? I don't like him. He used to be on a committee. And they start telling you all this stuff about their lives. And you got into this sort of microcosm thing, Yeah. And you became part of, by the end of the evening, you were kind of in a completely different world. And all that stuff's gone now because even the pubs have, the amount of pubs that were closing down, even in the 90s. And obviously now it's kind of an end game, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it's all the pubs you wouldn't want to close down either. All the soulless drinking halls are still open. All the 15-minute all the 15-minute gulag pubs. They're the ones that are staying in. It's the ones with character where you get proper people and proper beer. I think they're gone.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I did some massive working men's clubs. There's one in Hayes. I think that's probably still there because that got funded. Hayes Working Men's Club, and that was a real cabaret venue. I remember doing a solo act with there was a UB40 tribute on. So there's about 10 of them, and there was just me running around before it. John, run around the whole place to make it look like there's a lot happening. It's just me. But yeah, I've got kind of fond memories of that. I don't think I'd want to do it anymore. But it's kind of interesting because you get these flashbacks. And I made a film years ago called Farewell to Variety. And it's got people like John Inman in, Barry Cryer, a lady called Avril Angers, who was the first woman radio comedian who became really famous. And not many people know about her. And she was in it. There were Roy Hood. There was the people from Dad's Army, like, what's his name? Bill Pertwee, And they always used to drink in this club in the West End called the Concert Artistes Association. And I used to go there every Monday, and they'd all be in there. You'd have the vicar from Dad's Army at the bar, you know. It was great. It was really lovely and surreal. But that seemed, even though it was only in the 90s and 2000s, 2000s, but into maybe 2012, I probably stopped going there. So it was still going, but it seems when you watch videos and like trad jazz bands, it looks like something from 100 years ago because of the sudden and rapid change, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I just, you know, I when I was, I had a dabble with going to the gym a few years ago, and they put the chart music on in the gym, and you
Oh,
go,
dreadful, yeah.
yeah, and all the young people, messing around with the phones. They go to the gym to mess around with the phones. I'm like, well, you could do that at home or whatever. But they put the charts on the TV, and I'd be like, if you not got like MTV2 or something or whatever, and I was amazed by how just how generic everything was and how everything was by numbers now, and Ed
Well, it's good.
Sheeran.
It's good that you've kind of picked that up because obviously I'm not really on the circuit anymore. I only see what's on television. You know,
Well, no,
when I was in London, I went to a few events.
Yeah,
because I know people there, and I went there and it's sort of band, and I saw a comedian on one place, but it's like the performance has gone out of performance, you know.
Well, you'll still get originals about, but you won't get them on television anymore. Yeah, that's the thing. You won't get Johnny Rotten. You won't get Julian Cope or Morrissey or whatever. These you will not get a person like that turn up again. Yeah.
No.
Because
I mean, sometimes you think, am I romanticizing it a bit, you know? But I used to go to Eric's Club in Liverpool when I was very young. I was far too young to get in. I knew this band when I was about 15, and they used to play there regularly. So I saw all of these bands there, and like I saw the most amazing bands, you know. It was very exciting, though. There was something very exciting about it. And I don't think it was just my age. There was a kind of real, there was an edge to it all. There was a kind of edge, you know.
OMD made the debut at Eric's, didn't they? Oh, yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, because I was there one night and they had to call the performance off because the tape machine wouldn't work.
Oh, the other
only two of them, weren't they? Yeah.
Yeah. The tape recorder was called Winston.
Well, he let them down completely, and they had to cancel the gig.
It was about as good as my camera. Yes.
Yeah. Well, it goes to show you can't rely on technology, can you?
Yeah, but but you're right. It just seemed a bit different, because even like somebody like that now, they wouldn't get in the mainstream now. A couple of nerds from the Wirral, like that, who who didn't look like they looked like student teachers, not pop stars, but they were very original and they were very different. But they wouldn't make it big now. No chance.
No, they weren't the standouts down there for me. I saw some amazing bands. In fact, I saw Jacob Miller in Inner Circle 2 weeks before he died. It must have been 1980 or 1981. So there was a Facebook group. I'm not on Facebook anymore, but Eric's, and they put all the flyers up, and I recognised that date and what was on, and that was an amazing gig. In a place with a very low ceiling. I thought he was a great performer, Jacob Miller. The reggae band. They were almost like a covers band in a circle, but a very tight band, and he kind of fronted them. Right. And it was an amazing gig, It was, and you were very close to them as well. It was a right sweaty little place, So when you saw these bands, it was kind of, oh great, they're here. It was a great place. That it had a bit of magic about it. I used to see loads of bands down there. I saw Mick Hucknall when he was in a band called the Frantic Elevators, and I've never been a fan. I'll leave it there.
Well, no, I've never been a Simply Red fan, but I know he must have been in something like post-punk before that.
He was. Yeah, it was called the Frantic Elevators.
Right.
And they did punk and sort of comedy songs. And he always used to be on a matinee on a Saturday, and there was a local band called Big in Japan who were just like these local cultish band. And then that Pete Burns was down there all the time. He used to work in Probe Records across the road. There's a record shop, and he was always a poser. And I went in one day I went to buy the Teardrop Explodes album off him, and he had bones round his neck, and he had something through his. He had, I think, had a bone coming out of his nose or something. I thought, what's he dressing up like that in a record shop? Well, obviously because he's an exhibitionist, you know. But he wasn't the most interesting person down there at all. But you mentioned like Julian Cope and people like that. I did like that Teardrop Explodes when it first came out. I thought it was really quite an interesting sound, you know.
Yeah, well, I love it a lot. I mean, I listen. I mean, I was born in '82 as it happens, but I listened
You're
to
a
a lot
youngster,
of that.
yeah.
Youngster, but yeah, pop. But I listened to a lot of that alternative '80s stuff now and '90s as well. You know, and then it's almost like I just saw in one of the comments there. Did the world end in the year 2000? You know, musically it might have done. You know, or it might have. Somebody may have hit the button for it to go into some sort of decline, but. I think that it's been going on for a long time. This move towards sort of beige magnolia stuff. It's been happening for a while. I think
Definitely.
maybe the '80s and '90s was probably the last really great period there was in music.
I never liked the '90s much. It was all that sort of grungy kind. I thought it lost its energy then, personally.
Okay. Yeah. I know what you mean in terms of the grungy stuff, because obviously, because I mean, Kurt Cobain had the curse of dying when he was 27, which seems to afflict a lot of people. And then there were all
the Club of
late,
27. Yeah. Janis Joplin, Amy Winehouse, Brian Jones, Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix.
Ian Curtis is in it as well.
Oh, was he 27 as well?
I thought he was. Yeah, I think he was.
I saw him 2 weeks before he died.
Yeah.
At a gig, and I was kind of mesmerised because he was really on form, because I hadn't seen Joy Division live, and I'm not a great fan of them at all, to be honest. But the gig, I liked some of the stuff.
Yeah.
But I thought it got incredibly overrated. I thought New Order but better melodically and all the rest of it. But the thing that Joy Division had was Ian Curtis, because he was so different. And it was very disturbing to watch when he was on a good night. He was very manic, you know.
Yeah, because he had that. Because he had epilepsy as well, and so he used to really throw himself around the stage at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah,
you know, and it was.
I can remember it very clearly, Darren.
Mania,
yeah, like it was yesterday almost. It was John Cooper Clarke, Joy. It was John Cooper Clarke, Joy Division, and the Buzzcocks. The Buzzcocks came on after Joy Division, and they just came on in shirts, and they were just like the Buzzcocks. But Joy Division, they had the lighting. It was green and blue. It was all moody, and it was very different. I'd never seen anything like that before, you know.
Right.
Because I think the week before it was Mott the Hoople or Mott or something. I'd seen them, you know, and they were still in their 70s gear, and then this came along, and it was completely different. So yeah, and getting back to John Cooper Clarke, I mean, he used to hold the audience. They loved him. He was fantastic. I've always loved John Cooper Clarke. He's an amazing performer, you know.
Yeah, and he was one of I don't know, he was because I don't think many people could do what John Cooper Clarke did. I mean, you know, not many people are capable of doing that, you know, with spoken word, you know, but fusing it with a sort of musical style, you know, it's
Because Martin Hannett produced his album, didn't he, and put music behind it.
Yeah, and I think he had a couple of Buzzcocks guys with him. I think Pete Shelley was around him. It was just when he had music. He had music to stuff like "I Want to Be Yours" and Beasley Street and the like.
Yes.
Yeah. That Beasley Street
Cycle Sluts. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the record was it called Snap Crackle and Bop or something like that.
That's it. Yeah,
that's the one. Yeah. So, and he had a band around him at the time, and Hannett producing. Hannett being Joy Division's producer, and he did the first
Martin
couple of
Hannett,
Order. Yeah. I just have to double check that. I thought Ian Curtis was 27 as well, but I'll double check it later.
Yeah, it might not have been, but anyway, it's kind of lost in the sands of time, but still memories. I think that's another thing, isn't it? Like what you remember. I remember there's gigs that I really do remember. I remember most gigs, but a lot of the memories I've got are extraordinarily vivid of certain events, you know, and certain people. And I always remember that one. the John Cooper, Clark Buzzcocks, Joy Division is very, very memorable. And another band I liked in the 90s was Les Nigres Verts, the French group. I used to go and see them a lot, but the singer died, and then they became a little bit formulaic. They go a bit electronic, but I still like them. That was very different. That was very different, you know, to rock anyway. So it was kind of French chanson mixed with North African, bit of gypsy influence, rock. It had everything. And I don't think anyone did it quite as well as them, even though there was bands like Manu Chao, and there are bands who did that sort of stuff. But I thought they were the best at it personally, because it was kind of a bit understated and quite, you know. So yeah, I got into all that. Like, yeah, we're kind of straying all over the place here. That was the idea, to kind of, you know, get out of the wilderness of the mind project and onto something interesting. Yeah, people, but yeah, the Marquee closed. Yeah, the Marquee. In Wardour Street, yeah, that's a Weatherspoons now. That's actually a Weatherspoons.
Oh dear God,
the moon underwater. No, it's been there a long time. It's on Charing Cross Road, but the other one was in Wardour Street at the back. And I remember going to. They put a plaque up for Keith Moon, and Roger Daltrey turned up, and I got a kind of invite. I got a ticket to it. It was quite interesting, but it was like the blue plaque thing. And then the other blue plaque thing I went to was in Denmark Street with Donovan. And he was singing a song about Denmark Street, you know. But it's like the closing of an era, the whole thing, because Denmark Street is getting redeveloped now and all the rest of it, you know. So yeah, I don't want this to be a nostalgia thing. It's more like the social engineering aspect of it, of what's gone on, because obviously music's always been socially engineered. Like, you know, a lot of the 60s pop definitely was, but this huge thing about the conspiracy, it's all Tavistock and that sort of thing. Well, the advertising agencies and people like the Tavistock Centre, they've always been involved in social engineering, so it comes into the music. But you know, it's like when you meet musicians over the years and meet bands, you realise that it comes from them. But obviously, there's a zeitgeist, and they latch onto it. But it's the eccentricity I liked. You know, I was listening to Syd Barrett the other day. He was just a great songwriter and so original. You know, I put on the Madcap Laughs and Barrett, and I was quite captivated by it because it was like a little era of magic. You know, don't know whether you agree with that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not a massive Floyd guy, but obviously, you know.
Well, no, they became Pink. I mean, I think the only album he sang on was Piper at the Gates of Dawn, I think. But he wrote See Emily Play,
right,
which I thought was a fantastic song. Yeah, more Daz's poem was great. More praise needed. There you go, Daz. I'm sorry I interrupted you now.
No, don't apologise at all. No, it's fine. No, I haven't got a plant in the audience. Don't worry.
No, we don't. Well, we don't need any of those, do we? Because
it's not question time, is it?
Absolutely. We'll have another poem in a bit. In fact, you can do as many as you want. But Chris has put in something about those sweaty little clubs, 60s at the Marquee Club every Friday. Yeah, I've heard that was great. You know. Obviously, I wasn't there in the 60s, but do you remember Bungie's Folk Cellar? Do you remember that place? That was in Denmark Street, wasn't it?
Right. I'm not from. I'm not. That in London, is it? I'm not from London.
Yeah, so. That was where you'd get the poets turning up, you know.
Right.
And
okay.
It was like a souk. It was like an Arab souk, but it was called Bungie's Folk Cellar.
Right.
Yeah, that was an interesting little place. Yeah, there's not many folk clubs left. I'm sure there isn't. There used to be hundreds of them. Yeah, the folk scene is something I never really got into. I have to be right in the mood to do that, you know. I have to be in the mood.
Yeah. I've never. Yeah, does folk music have a clear definition or not? I've never quite. You know, could someone actually?
Well, it's the English folk, isn't there? Which is very much associated with the Morris Men and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. I'm not a great aficionado on it because I never liked it that much. No. But there's some things that I didn't like, which I now listen to because I didn't like them to see if I appreciate them now.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've never been a folk guy personally, but you know, each their own on that one. Yeah.
Well, people like Woody Guthrie were the American ones were interesting, weren't they? Because that became then the protest movement, didn't it? and that was all
Yeah.
a bit, it was all a bit gullible. And when you look at it, and of course Bob Dylan came out of that, didn't he?
Yeah.
And I used to listen to him all the time, and I just think now, why? Why did you listen to that?
Well, maybe
I like the
control.
words. I think I like the words. That was what it was. It's very,
Yeah, no, he was good. He was good at the mechanics of what he did. Yeah, I think you could say that. I mean, but maybe kind of fake protest has been going on for longer than we realise.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I tend to like to go back on. It's like films as well. I like to look at films from the 60s, 70s, and 80s to see what was happening at the time and how people were.
Mhm.
And it's the same with music in a way. I kind of find it like curious, like putting on old albums and really rediscovering things. I've been doing that a bit lately.
Right. Okay.
But yeah. And I found some most obscure and fascinating things to listen to. Yeah. Yeah. What's your thoughts on the Beatles? Darren, what's your thoughts on the Beatles?
The Beatles. My thoughts on the Beatles. Well, generically, oh God, right. I think the Beatles.
Anyway.
Yeah, but my random thoughts on the Beatles are that the Beatles are, culturally one of the most important things that ever happened. Right. In terms of they were one of the first bands that I think that they transcended what they did. They were, they were actually sort of.
But do you think that was them, or do you think that was the production and the other influences?
Yeah, it was probably a little of both, and there was probably a degree of they were picked for that reason, and they were ideal, and they were photogenic and whatever, and so they transcended. What they actually did, and they were part of popular culture. And they were probably the first band that actually was. Musically, I don't think they were all that. I don't think. I'm not that keen on them. I'm not that keen on them.
No.
What about you?
Not a fan at all. Never liked them. Thought Love Me Do was like Three Blind Mice.
Yeah.
And their latest stuff I thought was a bit better. Revolver I thought was very tight. Yeah. Sergeant Pepper's a couple of tracks on that. Never liked them though. I never liked them. They just never resonated with me at all. I could never work it out. I can kind of understand why people like them, but I thought I preferred bands like the Hollies, who people consider a bit middle of the road. But things like Bus Stop and all this, I thought they had a bit more kick, I thought they were a better band. But obviously, they didn't have that appeal, the teeny bop appeal. But no, I was never a fan of the Beatles. In fact, I found their early music profoundly depressing. And I don't really know why I found it profoundly depressing, but I did.
No, it was. When you listen to Beatles songs, and you just go in a pub and you've got the best of the Beatles on the jukebox or whatever, and it is very by numbers, and there's not really a great deal of imagination gone in. The pop stuff they did, the early Beatles stuff. I'm maybe a little less harsh than you on it, but I don't think it's certainly nothing special,
No, I'm just kind of interested in what people think, because I mean it's such an institution. I remember a friend of mine years ago said, but there was loads of bands around at the time who were really good. And he goes, no, they were unique. And well, actually they weren't,
No, that's one thing they weren't. Interested musically, they certainly weren't. I mean, they were between them and the people around them. Fine, they were the first major band who crossed over into popular culture in the way that they did. I think you can say that. But musically, no, there was nothing specially unique about them at all.
No, it didn't. It never really kind of inspired me in any way, Never really got into that.
Yeah,
I liked. I've always liked more off the wall things than that, anyway. But I wasn't a John Lennon fan. I didn't like him at all, and people idolize him, but I never liked him. Being brutally honest here, by the way, obviously, because I think it's more interesting if you complete it. And I'm at the point now where I'm brutally honest about everything,
Yeah, well, I think I'm trying to think here. Did John Lennon write a couple of good songs? Maybe a couple of good songs. That'd be nice, right? But is he this kind of? I think this thing about him being this sort of icon who, who
Mm.
sort of like, and in some ways, was he not like one of the early prototypes? All this Poundland spirituality we were talking
Oh,
about.
absolutely,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
100%. I mean,
Yeah,
he was a, imagine is like a globalist UN
yeah,
product.
yeah. It is.
The words, I mean, it's complete and utter wilderness of the mind project. Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
And
I mean, yeah. He would. Today, if John Lennon was alive today, he'd have a Smash Capitalism tour sponsored by Goldman Sachs, wouldn't he? That'd be him.
yeah, I always found it a bit phony, to be honest. I mean, I thought Ringo was the best. I've said that before because of his honesty, because of the things
Right.
he said about the Maharishi and all that. Because he didn't
Right.
seem to, and he was very funny in the 70s. I put on those sometimes because he was quite amusing. I think he's obviously sick of it now, but he's got a band, hasn't he? And they're like a pub band, really. And he's great. I quite like it. I like the way he is because he's kind of unconcerned now. He just, it's what I'm going to say, like singing Octopus's Garden and stuff like that on the drums. So it's funny. Yeah.
Well, he's sort of liberated from it all. Then he doesn't feel sort of the stress of carrying the legacy on or anything like that. I mean, I know there was according to one theory, he's the only living Beatle left, isn't he?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, exactly. But the Paul is dead thing is so boring. I mean, Nick Colostrum was so obsessed with it for ages. And Nick used to live near me in Walthamstow. We're great friends, and he got into this. He got so obsessed with it, and he found this album called Billy Pepper and the Pepper Pots, and it was like Pickwick or something. It was, those like Top of the Pops records where ones where they do pastiches. It was actually Mersey beat pastiches. It was quite clever actually, but it was obviously done by really good musicians. He came round all excited one day with this record. He goes, Mark, Billy Pepper and the Pepper Pots, put it on, first track. And I said, yeah, it's a Beatles pastiche. He goes, no, it's Fall. It's fake Paul. And it wasn't. It was some bloke's dad who'd worked with the Bee Gees. Because Nick mentioned it. He goes, no, that's my dad. He worked for Pickwick Records. It wasn't fake Paul.
Yeah.
And then we were sat in the Bell pub in Walthamstow. And Nick goes, I know who the replacement was for Paul. And I said, who's that, Nick? And he goes, Viv Stanshaw. And after I'd kind of wiped the beer off myself from laughing, I said, how could Vic Stanshaw have been? Who was standing in for Viv when the Bonzos were playing? And he goes, oh, I don't know. And I said, how could it have been Viv Stanshaw? Because did you know that the Bonzo Dog Band had a residency every 2 weeks in this very pub in the Bell in Walthamstow? And he goes, oh, I didn't know that. He couldn't leave it alone, Nick. And he wrote a book about it. And it's called a Very British Mystery or something.
Yeah.
But his research is brilliant usually. But it was amusing that he got into that more than anything. That I thought, what has possessed him to get involved in this? Because he wasn't really into music, and then he bought a record player, and it was great actually. Fond memories of those times, But,
No, I heard something about the guy that's supposed to have got in replace him was the winner of a lookalike competition or something like that. That was the story. But yeah, it's one of those. It's got a limited shelf life, but yeah. So Ringo's doing great. That's the main thing.
Yeah. Well, I think it might be time for another poem, Daz.
Yeah, we can do. Yeah, we can do. We've got a swear word, but I just won't say it. Okay, so
all right, then. I think we might be able to guess what it is. We might if you put the right accent on it, I think we'll get it.
It's an F-bomb. So it's just what inspired.
Oh, right. I think we know what that is.
Yeah. So it just inspired by the fact that the Christmas party invites went out this week. And I always laugh at work's Christmas parties because there's always somebody who never comes back, And there's
is it? Yeah, the old the people actually photographs their arse on the photocopies. They actually do things like that.
Well, people do worse things than that,
Yeah, I know. I was thinking that because it's a bit lame, that, isn't it? To do.
Yeah, it is. I mean, if I was, if I caught somebody doing that at a Christmas party, I'd just say, if I was the boss, I'd just say, grow up, or stop being so fake rebellious. You're some sort of conformist trying to pretend that you're not.
Yeah,
You
that's
know,
it, isn't it? Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I'm a bit mad. I am. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh, don't give me another baby sham. Yeah.
yeah. Booze for baby.
That's
Booze for
incredible, Greg. All right, you got Baby Ramona. Yeah, it's incredible, Greg.
yeah, yeah. There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah. Then Francisco went insane, and I became the king of England. It's incredible, Greg.
Yeah, yeah. But then you lent him a van, and he nearly died. You know.
I was part
So
of a bizarre plot to kill him with a
yeah,
Nissan van, 2005 Nissan Vanette. Yeah,
yeah. There you go. But if you
implicated
were
in his
really,
murder.
there you go. If you were really trying to kill him, you'd have lent him a Fiat Uno, wouldn't you? So
Well, exactly. Yeah. I mean, I, I, I had a Transit, but I didn't want to let him near that, because that would have been a complete disaster, wouldn't it?
yeah. Well,
But
yeah.
yeah,
So
it was hilarious, all that. I mean, that's why I did that show, mate. But the thing is, with Greg, I mean, people believe him, and he puts all this stuff out. And I had one the other day. He's obviously looked
yeah.
this thing on BitChute where Greg's gone, yeah. So there's Mark Windows, Vinnie Eastwood, and Max Egan. They're all part of a cell with Ken O'Keefe, and they're all agents. And he's put on the Spreaker. He's going, I know your connection with Max Egan, bloody Vinnie Eastwood, and he's like, there isn't one, you dimwit. You know what I mean? It's just...
So does Greg go down that route with everybody he comes into contact with? You know, whether it's you, me, random person he meets down the
Yeah, what it
page,
is, it's very entertaining the way he does it, because he'll spin a story out of absolutely nothing. It's like that thing with my name, that I changed it somehow to cover up that I was a Windsor. Do you know what I mean? But Windsor was one of my father's middle names, and I used it when I joined British Equity, because I was in that. I was a variety artiste. You know what I mean? Doing my gigs,
yeah.
and so my second name's a bit long, so it couldn't be remembered. So I put this I put it as Windsor, and then I think we're talking about this before the show. It inadvertently got changed when I did a gig with the Damned, because they put my name as Mark Windows on the poster. I thought, this is fantastic. I'm in a dressing room with Captain Sensible, Rat Scabies. Now I'm Mark Windows. I thought it was brilliant. You know, it was meant to be.
Absolutely, yeah. That's it. You just gotta. You know, you threw the. You know, they didn't even throw the dice. They landed in front of you with 2 6s, didn't they?
Absolutely, it was ordained, preordained. But yeah, is it true that Hallett is the head of hummus? Oh, he is. Never leave an unfinished tub of hummus in your fridge. In fact, never leave hummus in your fridge if he's around, because it's a very kingly pastime eating hummus, and he will devour it. Yeah.
All right, hummus. There you go. Oh, I think I know the unused sub. I think it's my friend Fergus. Evening, mate. Yes, we did. We used to make jokes about Christmas parties all the time. Yeah, you're that fake fun. You know, there's no fun quite like fake fun, Mark.
Yes. Yeah, I can imagine those office parties are pretty dreadful. Yeah, I've never been to one. There was one at the People's Voice TV once, but that turned into a horror show. You know, someone tried to set alight a picture of David Icke in the lift, and then he poured fool's gold all over my desks and deleted everything on my computer.
Oh my God. Right. Well,
yeah,
right.
And it was very bizarre. But that's the only office party I've ever been to. So my experience of it is limited and probably not accurate, you know.
How did the picture of David Icke end up in the lift? Well, that's curious.
Someone had painted a picture of him, and it was about a metre square, and they'd put it in his office.
Right.
And this woman who was completely unhinged, who was actually put on my team as a researcher, she was an agent sent to kill me, and and she nearly bloody did, and she took this picture of David Icke into the lift on the 8th floor and proceeded to set fire to it at this party. Yeah. So it wasn't just a normal office party, obviously.
Well, no, not where pyromania is involved. No, it sounds like it got a bit out of hand. There you go.
Yeah, definitely.
For the party that happened in the hotel or whatever, you know, they hire a venue. You know, there are certain things you're looking for, and a bunch of different ways in which you can inadvertently hand your notice in.
Yes.
Yeah. So this poem's called "The Corporation Game," and it deals with the 3 or 4 main ones. If you and the listeners want to hear it,
yeah, go for it. Let's have it.
The Corporation Game. Okay. It's that time of year. Oh yes, I knew it. So much so, I set my watch to it. October 12th, on cue, without fail. Princess puts out a perfunctory email. A festive evening that you can spend with your fake family and phony friends. Join our club. Can you knock up the nerve? 10 quid in. First come, first served. Magnolia Mayhem. It's all the same. Go on then. Let's play. The corporation game. Delightfully dolled up, plied with booze. Tonight's a special showcase to schmooze. Hey, talking shop won't do no harm. Your comatose career needs a shot in the arm. You can't maneuver that extra mile, then take the tit for a twirl on the tiles. Lombarda, Macarena, waltz. You're perfect, boss. You've got no faults. These are the rules, so who can blame? Hey, it's all cool in the corporation game. They're taking as fast as anyone can give it. Intern Lorgans push right to their limits. Sweetie Pie set off like some intercity, but right now her insides don't sound too pretty. Slammer 16 seems bound to break her. Price that you pay for being the pacemaker. Reflux reissues a repeated rebuke. Pass the popcorn. She's preparing to puke. Tertiary fun tastes totally the same.
Definitely.
Up it comes in the corporation game. Now, I don't want to sound bitter or twisted because I've got grudges and grievances listed. Middle managers I've never rated. Smoke sycophants I always hated. Gonna gate crash the staff bus home. Comes with the territory when in Rome. This won't need judges, I've no doubt. A Lagerfield left duck leaves, lights out. Self-defense? That's what you'll claim. It all makes sense in the corporation game. A same-sex marriage with sparks since gone. 10 years missionary, no lights on. That nook of life now amounts to naught. But you've one more admirer than you thought. She'll answer to anything you might call her. Your wife looks better for being 4 inches taller. Magnificent mannequin, made to measure. Toilet transaction, ribbed for her pleasure. Fridays is Saturday's shame.
Naughty.
Lust minus luck equals the corporation game. In session is the court of HR lady. Your advocate opines, oh, but you made me. Told us to take this train right to town. Relax, unwind, let our ponytails down. You clearly forgot to read the disclaimer. Usual rules, and yes, we will blame you. It's December, the month of careers dismembered. You ran this road at your own risk. Remember, they saw you coming, before you came. It's no use running because you've just lost the corporation game. There you go.
That was good. I like that one.
Thanks.
That was very engaging and very visually stimulating. You know, I got a lot of imagery in that, and it brought home all the very depressing aspects of people who do that. You know.
Well, oh right, yeah. Well, you know what? It's mad though, isn't it? Because, because you can spend years working, you're building a career somewhere, can't you? Right? And then you go out, right? You could spend years. Well, I tried and I failed.
Yes.
But you could spend years and years building a career somewhere. You know, you could go out, you could go to night school or whatever. You could get qualifications, and then you go out one night, right? And you put 2 or 3 too many sambucas down your neck or whatever, and you make a fool of yourself, and it's over. It's mad. It shows you how precarious it all is, doesn't it?
Well, it's like that in most businesses. I mean, once you push it too far just once, especially now, I think it's even worse, isn't it?
Yeah.
Someone just mentioned something actually that would be good to clear up, because I had a problem with it as well at People's Voice TV. All that money was raised. I have no idea where it went. But what I do know is it went into David Icke's business part, not David Icke's account. It went into David Icke's business partner's personal PayPal account.
Right.
So the question does remain as to why was so much raised, what was actually done with it? Because I was there for a short period of time, working 5 days a week, and I wasn't getting paid very much. I wasn't getting paid much at all. But the point is that I think things like that are a big kick in the teeth to the public. I was very disappointed because when I went to that People's Voice TV, I was 100% into doing what I was doing. I was 100% dedicated, and we put out some fantastic info on that. And the thing was so badly run, it nosedived from the start. And all you needed to do was put it on a little industrial estate somewhere and have 2 good shows a day. That's all you needed. Well, even Russia Today started like that, didn't it? It had like 4 hours on originally, didn't it? It had 4 hours of stuff a day. And that was a big funded TV. So it's not the quantity, it's the quality. And that was what they never understood. He wanted to put out like continuous live streaming of what? A bloke talking about what he does in his shed, and some girl talking about new age stuff, and then another one talking about how did you wake up? Just nonsense. There was absolute bloody nonsense, wall to wall nonsense on it, you know. And then, yeah, I learned about a lot about how things are marginalized with that setup, and the infiltration there was absolutely horrendous. It was fully infiltrated, fully
Really?
infiltrated. Oh yes, I'll talk about it one day, not now because we've been going for an hour and a half. But there's some funny stories as well. But you know, there was people in there who were spying basically, and they were listening to everything.
Grifters as well, I thought.
Yeah, all the people there were grifters. I mean, they were media people, and the last thing you want when you're doing something like that is media people. And they put this girl as a producer. They had to sack her in the end. I was looking at these things where Ike was getting interviewed in this place. What is she doing in the background there? Because she's gone to a desk for 2 minutes. She's gone over there to talk to someone. Now she's at the back. She's meant to be working. She's meant to be, you know, it was all BS. So it allowed a lot of chances to go in, you know, but that was the mistake. Not worth talking about now. But yeah, I was quite peeved about the whole thing, really. I was annoyed about it. And I didn't want to be associated with it afterwards because it was such a major bloody disappointment. And I was like, really put 100% into that.
I can feel your pain with that. You know, when you put effort into anything, you know, whether it's any big project, when you put a genuine effort into it, and it turns out that, you know, I don't know, there were people involved. I'm just thinking of something that springs to mind immediately. People who were not on the level or whatever. You know, it is a big kick. It's hard to get up from sometimes, Mark, isn't it? It takes you a while to get up.
Kind of that my involvement with this has been like that from the start, because everything we put out was shut down. I've had massive victories and things like not just winning, but really doing stuff like the bringing down Crime Stoppers and stuff I've done in the courts. It all goes. You see, this is what I don't like about this alternative media is they just grift around themselves and they talk nonsense. There's no guts to any of it. There's no guts to any of it. I mean, you've got to put yourself on the line completely and live by your own moral code and your own inner integrity. And if you don't do that, yeah, you're an alt media conspiracy theorist grifter, like most of them. And that's that. Yeah. It shouldn't have turned out like that. It shouldn't have turned out like that, but it did, unfortunately. So that's the if anything's frustrating about it, it's that all these phonies have come along and nobody's doing anything anymore. And meanwhile, the agenda is nearly complete. And we're trying to, the solutions to it are very simple as well.
Yeah. I mean, we've been going for quite a while. I mean, one of the things I did want to touch on very quickly was it's always been party conference season, and it amazes me how many people are still on that left-right party paradigm.
Oh,
yeah,
God, I know.
And they think, oh, if we get rid of the current lot and get someone else in, that'll improve things. And you think, don't you realise that actually, look, you know, that what's been going on for about 25 years or so has been going on regardless of who's been in office. Yeah, you know, the transition from the Blair group to the Cameron cult, and look how similar it all was. Yeah, it was the same thing. And you think, and people go, oh, you know, F the Tories, right?
Oh, I can't stand that. You know, it's like these musicians that I had some respect for. I won't mention their names, but people are well known. And he's like, he'll come on and he'll be doing an interview and it's got F the Tories on his mug and he's drinking out. You think, you utter fool, you know, you gullible moron. Why do you even do that? And I think, that is very, very frustrating when they're still in the left-right thing.
Yeah, they're on that paradigm. Yeah, they're on that paradigm. When actually, look, you know, I'm I'm starting to come to the conclusion, Mark, that the parties are controlled. These
Mm.
parties are controlled.
Well, we know that, yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. I
but
think
also,
everyone on this
yeah,
live
that's
stream would
great.
know that, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great because it gets me off the conspiranoid,
Mm.
the
Mm.
conspiranoid grifter circuit. But also that the results of elections. These people are groomed. Who's going to win? It's all kind of nudged and encouraged. I'll tell you that. Just for reference, Starmer's won the next election. He's won.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just as we knew Cameron was going to win.
I'm just reiterating. Someone's put something in to the chat, and yes, that's true. That's what happened. And he shut it all down. He shut my show down. He stopped it from going 2 hours live to 1 hour recorded on the back of a load of BS. Then he took away my phone in. He brought it down. Yeah. So the whole point is that was an exercise, and it was done for that very reason. It was done to try and implode the alternative media. I don't give a damn what I say about it anymore anyway, because the whole thing was an absolute farce. And I had some laughs there. There was an undercover guy, an undercover policeman came in one day, and he was organising a rally in Trafalgar Square to practice. It was a police exercise. So we got 3,000 willing punters to protest against, inverted commas, corruption, with his megaphone copying Alex Jones. And he came in and he knew that I knew what he was up to, and he couldn't keep a straight face. And I never put the interview out anyway, but there was lots of that going on there. And you think, oh, what are you bringing these people in for? It was just a joke, the whole thing. Yeah, never mind.
Was Alex Jones involved with it? So was Alex
No.
Jones
This is a fella who was he was obviously from the intelligence community, and he was wanting me to promote this protest they were having. But he knew in the interview by what I was asking him, and I was putting him on the spot in a really quite funny way, and people in the gallery were laughing because he knew he'd kind of been rumbled. But in a way, he was actually doing a public service, because it was a police exercise to stop people getting hurt at the next thing, So you can see it either way. But I mean, the idea that the protests aren't run by the state is an absolute joke. And I lost quite a lot of the conspiratard community, the conspiracy circus, because they got really upset about an article I put out called COVID Protest Social Engineers, which highlighted how they did it, who was doing it, and what for. And nobody could refute the article because it was all spot on. And it was all based on my previous investigations into Occupy, etc. And the same people do it. I think I brought this up on the last thing, so I won't go on about it. But it's the same thing. It's like the political thing is the same thing as when they're going on about protest and resistance. The only way to have resistance is in unstructured groups. You have to do what the globalists do. You have to re-infiltrate what they're doing. And I've been going on about this for years, but people are so gullible. They're falling for the permanent revolution, which is the trap.
Yeah, well, people seem to have a kind of savior syndrome as well, where they're kind of looking for the great leader to come down and rescue them as well. And
yes,
that's when you talk about people who have arrested development, that's quite a common thing. You talk about fake groups. I saw that someone invaded the stage this week when Keir Starmer was speaking. Somebody from one of these "Let's Have Real Democracy" groups, and their big thing was we want proportional representation. Do you know what? I've never, ever been in a conversation about anything, in a pub, in a coffee shop, and whatever, where they've gone, what would change everything if we had proportional representation? It's one of those things that...
It's remedial level stuff. And I think this is one of the problems I've had over the years with the show, because most people don't even understand what I'm trying to say. And what I'm trying to say is so bloody simple. It's so simple. And they go back. This is another thing. They'll go, oh, yeah, I agree with that. And then they'll go back and they'll go, well, we've got to get the Tories out there.
You've got to recognise that these two parties are two cheeks of the same rear end, right? That's the thing. Yeah. And there's no point being angry at one and not the other, right? They will deliver very similar results. And the thing is, I think that there is a kind of a cleverness to it. There's an allusion to it, because if you look at the bits of Agenda 2030 that they're on about now, they are sort of, we talk about the electric car madness, the vegan madness, the climate change lunacy, and all the social control that they want to do. That's the next step of it, right? That is left wing in quotes stuff, isn't it? Yeah.
Yes. Well, what they do is they then say that anything outside of it is far right, which is the most absurd thing. But it's all mimetic warfare. So what you have to do is you have to destroy the opposition by association with something that the public will think is negative.
Yeah.
It's like they'll Hope Not Hate will say, oh yes, well, Windows gives a platform to people we don't like. But that's what the whole idea of your fake democracy is all about, isn't it? That everyone has a voice. I thought that was the idea of the big society where no one's left behind. But you can only kind of look at it the way it really is. Once you know the way it is, then there's nothing much you can say about it. I've done so much stuff on these groups like Hope Not Hate and these lobbying groups. And if we look at what's happening in Israel now, the comments that are coming out of this country and what people are saying, they are so gullible. They're going to fall for it again and again and again. We've had it with Iraq. We've had it with Libya. We've had it before. We've had the whole thing. They don't know the history of that country in the Middle East that the British set up. They don't know anything about it. And everybody gatekeeps for it. And we know that. We'll have to move on. But yeah, I think most people get it. Most people on here get it, so we don't have to do that. But we've been going quite a long time now. Is there anything else you wanted to bring up, Darren?
No, to be honest, that was the other main thing. I was gonna make a joke about we were talking about grifters earlier. I was gonna say the 3 words Captain Tom Moore, if you fancy saying anything about that. But I don't know if you saw that news item a few days ago about the family kept the money.
Oh yeah, I mean the thing is, right? I thought that was an insult to anyone's intelligence that little stunt was pulled. I thought it was the lowest of the low kind of stunt to do. I really did. And then, of course, if you say that, how can you say that? Well, I can say that because I can see a grift when I can see one, and I could see one.
Yeah, Mark, I said a watered down version of that, what you just said, and I got plenty. Yeah, I said this does. I just said this does not feel right. It does not feel on the level, and it was, you can't say that. He's a hero. Oh God, no!
He's a hero for walking around a garden with his walking frame.
And you know what? No. People who've really won that many medals.
So what he was doing was saying, yeah, I advocate lock-ins. I advocate everything that they're doing, and I'm going to agree with everything the state is putting out. And that I thought it was a despicable act, really, the whole thing. But then again, I've got this inner moral compass, which means I can't stand fakery, and that was fake.
No, yeah. when you get fakers in all walks of life, whether they are fake disaster victims, people pretending to be ill when they aren't. I've seen that one. It just makes you a bit more. It makes you a bit more cynical afterwards. It makes you a bit less empathic towards people generally. It's not a nice thing.
Well, I don't think it does that for me.
Right.
But it just makes me disappointed that people are so gullible, because it's the gullibility that is enabling this new system to be brought in so rapidly that people never look at the real story. They always fall for the cover story. And that charity is a good example of that, because obviously she's been found out now. The Charity Commissioner investigating and all that stuff. But it isn't it just the same as the conspiracy theorist grifters who raised all that money for court cases that never happened? 70 grand.
Yeah.
I mean, this is outrageous manipulation of the public. So the conspiracy grifters are just as bad as those people.
Of course they are.
Yeah,
of course they are.
Yeah, the worse. Well, worse in a way, aren't they?
Yeah, well, the people peddling hoax stories and all sorts of stuff like that. But I mean, all I say, obviously, when we started from the top, we were talking about, when we got into about 5 years ago. I remember the stuff about Hope Not Hate. That was some of the first Windows in the World stuff I ever listened to.
Right. Yeah, to give a bit of context, they had a go at me because I'd done a talk at the 9/11 Keep Talking group, and they played something on this advert that they put on Twitter, And it was me saying the Joe Cox assassination was a psychological operation on the British public. Well, it was. So why would you pull that out anyway? And then they sent Antifa down, which is a terrorist organization, to where somebody was talking and they said that they were a Nazi. And I think it was Nick Colostrum who was talking or something, but he wasn't talking about anything controversial. I think he was probably talking about something, Paul is dead or something. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he probably was.
And then all this bloody Antifa turned up and they actually threw James Thring to the ground. He was this peace campaigner, you know, a real peace campaigner, you know. And they sent all these people in black. And that was hope, not hate. So the thing is, you see, these are prescribed terror groups. These are terrorists. Mm. These are stopping people. They've got a political ideology which is far left, extreme Marxism. They are basically agents of the globalists. That's all they are. Antifa is a globalist operation, same as Black Lives Matter, same as all of them. They all are. Same as Extinction Rebellion, same as, you know, what's the idiots who glue themselves to roads, you know. You know, all that stuff. It's all the same stuff. It's the permanent revolution.
You know, somebody made a great comment in the chat earlier, and it's absolutely spot on. And I've thought about, and whether it is left, right, whatever you want, whatever label. If you spot any organisation that goes from 0 to 60 in in seconds, and has a national profile overnight, big red flag, probably fake.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And you know, and that's something that I was saying that about really been trying to make that point to people. Like it's difficult when it's great being on this show because you're around like-minded people, and I'm sort of entry level still, really. But you know, when you get out there and you're with people who they're not with it, it's a real struggle, Mark. It is. You know, you'll know.
Yeah. I was shut down everywhere in the UK, and certain things happened which indicated everything that I was learning about was very prevalent. Let's just put it that way. So all the stuff about the change agents, the infiltration, the Saul Alinsky rules, the terrorism was not being talked about by anybody. There was one person in 2010 who talked about it, and we did a show on it. Right. But he never kind of followed it up, really. But I've been talking about this for so long because it's the key to everything. This is how we are being governed. And it's exhausting because I've got loads of enthusiasm for putting the information out, but we are so restricted on all the platforms. And of course, now the conspiracy circus has ousted. We always were outside that, actually, because most of those people are grifters. And I don't mind saying that. They all are. I don't know any of them that are genuine. You know, and that might be unpopular, but I've got to the point now. I went on a stream the other week and I said, look, I don't care what anyone here thinks of me. In fact, doing these shows is a complete waste of time unless you actually take anything of this on board, look into it yourselves and take some action. Otherwise, I'm wasting my time here. This is obviously different because we're doing it for a slightly different reason. But I mean, that's the way it is. I'm at the point now where I'll be brutally honest about everything. I don't care. I've got nothing that I need to hold back on. Nothing. So
no,
yeah.
I was lucky in a narrow sense that I had this run-in with this person 5 years ago because it kind of opened my eyes. I was open to the fact that that I stopped watching television around that time as well, which was the big thing that people can do. You know, stop watching. And I actually went back, and I was probably pushed for time. I actually went back and I put the news on one night when I was just at home or whatever. And it was so funny. It was this story was on the news about National Action, one of those fake alt-right groups.
Well, I did something on them, you know, because it looked so fake and ridiculous the way they were dressed up. And that was something that hope not hate were meant to have infiltrated.
This is the story.
Some lad, was that the lad who was about 23 who got done for plotting to murder an MP, and he was drunk in a pub and he said, "I'd kill that MP." Yeah, I think that's what he said, and he's now doing a long time for it. That is the sinister side of these organisations. I mean, I'm not advocating these people and their idiocy at all. What I'm saying is that it's the same thing that's going on in the Middle East right now. Yeah. these false flags and this infiltration of organizations is something the public cannot ever seem to get their heads around.
Yeah, well, this was the mad thing. The narrative was this guy. There was this guy who apparently, he started out as being one of them, and then he realised they were a
Yes.
bit nasty and a bit violent. And then he heard this guy making this comment in the pub. Little did he know that he was feeding information back to.
Oh,
Hope,
that
not
fat
hate.
bloke! That fat bloke.
that was
He looks
it.
a complete loser. Yeah, he just looks like a complete loser. And then you go, he's the hero that stopped the murder of this MP. We shouldn't be laughing at it because it's not funny, but in a way, it's funny because they are so bloody useless at what they're doing. These people, they call them the intelligence services, and it's an oxymoron. It really is. It doesn't even. It's like Kabbalistic yoga. Do you know what I mean? The two do not and can never go together.
Yeah. Well, Microsoft works. Yeah. I mean, it's I just went. When I had this little break from watching television, I went back to watch it. I was like, oh my God, you're seeing this completely differently to how you would have seen it 12 months ago. It's amazing, really, what a break from watching television can do. And you go, God, this is bollocks. This whole story is absolute rubbish,
Well, yeah, I mean, the way that they construct these newsreels and what these presenters are saying, I find it so offensive. It's like being gaslighted. I just can't watch it. It actually disturbs me watching it, so I can't believe that people are still at that level, but they are, and we're in Act 3, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. We've been going for an hour and 40 minutes, actually, Dad. It's been pretty good, really. I think it's been all right. I think, I don't think there was any sections of that were actually dull, But that's my opinion, obviously.
Well, that's good. That's good. Well, that's a tick in the box for both of us, then, isn't it? That's decent. And I hope everybody listening and watching has enjoyed it. I'll go to Curry's tomorrow, and I'll get myself a new camera.
Go to Curry's. Get yourself a camera. Yeah, get yourself a camera. Yeah. That was funny. That one, just to wrap up, because I got back in, I could just see Darren there, and I thought I'll put his camera on in a minute, and my heart sank because I thought they want to see you. That's the whole point of doing it. It's
all right. Are you sure?
Well, I think they do with the poetry and that. They want to see the expressions on your face and all
right. Well, on that avatar, I look like a newsreader on that avatar, don't I? I could be reading the news on there. So
yes, yeah. Well, it's you look very presentable on that. You look very presentable. I must say.
Well,
I mean, if you turned up like to be employed somewhere, I thought, yeah, it looks a trustworthy bloke actually. So that it's not a bad avatar. But next time we need the real person in the room.
Well, we definitely do. Well, yeah, it definitely is me. It's not AI. I can promise you. You know that anyway.
Exactly. I know that anyway, mate. I know. Right. Thanks for coming on, Darren. It was great, actually. I really enjoyed that.
No, thank you for having me, mate. And we'll do it again sometime, definitely. Well, you're going out again on Sunday night, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah, we do a show every Sunday, 9:30. It's been scrolling underneath there. People are probably bloody sick of that. I should have taken that off about an hour ago. I know, but I didn't, so it's still there. But yes, 9:30 p.m. every Sunday. Please subscribe to us on Spreaker and Odyssey on the homepage at windowsontheworld.net. Check out the articles, Know the Enemy Within, and A Globalist Cult for Everyone, because there are so many shows and articles linked there. You will find it very educational. I'm not doing this to get a big audience. I've never done this to get a big audience. I do this to get the information out. And that's the only frustration I have, is that we've been absolutely shut down. And nobody wants to put out decent information, and that I find to be very offensive. That's my kind of summation of how things have ended up, because I was in it at the start, really. As Love Cara knows, my friend out on there, because we've known each other for more than I care to remember. I mean, yeah, and for it to have gone into this new age self-indulgent cult of self bullshit, then I think that is a real backward step, and we need to pull ourselves out of it.
Yeah.
Great.
Oh,
great.
Yeah. Are you still there, mate? Yeah.
I'm still here. Yeah. I was just kind of thinking, I think I've kind of made my point there, you see. So I think we can say good night now to the listeners.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you reckon?
Cool. Right. No, that's good. No, thank you, mate. Thanks for having me. Yeah, someone's just made a nice comment about GB News being like the BBC on steroids.
It's dreadful. The only person on there who I watch is David Curtin, because I follow his videos. And he's the only person who called out the Letby thing, which we've talked about. And he's the only person who said anything sensible about what's happening in Israel. That, and in a way, that is really depressing. That he's the only politician in Britain who's actually got the guts and the integrity to say what he's saying. I think it's pathetic.
Well, we'll see how long David Curtin retains his mainstream profile, you know, in terms of that. GB could stand for gatekeeper broadcasting. You never know.
Oh, it's dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. Yeah. However, we're not like that. And I'll do more of these. I never get too discouraged despite what's going on, because I know that there are solutions and we've found the solutions. And that's what it's all about. And the information, I love the information, Darren. That's why I do it. I love the information. I love the research, you know.
Yeah.
So that's why I keep doing it. Well, thanks for coming on. It was good, that bit of reminiscing and some great poems.
Thank you, mate.
I've always liked your stuff. I actually like reading it more in a way. I love reading your stuff. So where do we get your book from again?
So it's on lulu.com. I've just sent you a copy today for promotional purposes and review purposes. But it's on lulu.com. If you just go Daz Pearce, I've always been Daz with my mates for short.
Daz, yes.
It's in the washing powder.
That's
it. So if you go Daz Pearce, I've got 4 out now, but the latest one's Supernova. It's £3 on. It's £3 on Lulu. But I'm on Facebook as well. If you want to review it or anything like that, or a promotion.
I will do. And if you want to come on and read some on the shows, we'll do it. We'll do this in future anyway.
Yeah, but with a camera.
This is what I like, is to give people a bit of a voice out there, because a lot of these conspiracy circus people, it's just that it's like a little circuit. And what's the point of that? You want people who are fresh if you're going to have someone on. You know, everything these people says is the same on every video. So we want real variety. That's what we want. We'll bring back variety.
Well, you should. I'll probably do 2 or 3 of these, and then I'll run out of things to say. And I'll go, I'm not going to outstay my welcome. I think that's the thing with a lot of these, with a lot of these conspiracy people. They've outstayed the welcome a while ago, haven't they?
Oh, dreadful. Yeah, and then most of it is just like they spend 10 minutes not saying anything. It's like, I watch this stuff, they send it to me, and people like that Del Bigtree and all this. What are they saying? They're not saying anything. There's no solution. They're just going on and on and on about what they are doing. Well, we know what they're doing. We know how they're doing it. So, the people who are watching that stuff know anyway. So they're just regurgitating back to the listener what they already know, which I've never done, actually. I have to say that I've never done that. However, I'm not going to sit here self-aggrandizing, which it might sound like. I'm just saying, just saying.
Hey, look, we like your work. That's why we're all here, I think. So,
yeah,
cool,
Darren, love your work. Keep it up. Fantastic. And we'll see you on the next show.
Nice one. Thank you, Mark. Thanks everyone who's watched.
Yeah, cheers. I had to give it that little segue thing at the end. But thanks everybody. Thanks for watching. I'll do more of these, so we'll have some fun amongst the end times. See you everybody. Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye. Cheers, Darren. Bye.